In making this video, there was one main question that I had to answer. Is it even possible to have a true travel credit card without an annual fee? And based on my research for this video, as well as gathering experiences from people in the community, I've come to a conclusion. Yes, it is possible, but man, are your options limited. To set expectations for this video, I first want to say that this is only going to be about general travel credit cards. I'm not including any airline or hotel credit cards here with no annual fee. It's just general travel credit cards. And I will be making videos on hotel and airline cards pretty soon. On top of that, of course, no card in this video has an annual fee on it. But because of that, there are really only 2 true travel credit cards with no annual fee on them. And what I mean by true travel credit cards are cards that allow you to transfer your points out to their travel partners. But we do actually have a couple of more credit cards on this list that might become true travel cards pretty soon. Plus, we'll also be talking about a lot of pseudo travel credit cards, like ones that you can use through portals to get some elevated value, or ones that you can combine with higher tier credit cards to then transfer your points out to those travel partners. I'll be breaking this video down into 3 main parts. Part 1 is going to be about those true no annual fee travel credit cards, and I'll be doing more of an in-depth review on those. Part 2 is going to be what I call travel credit cards that might be marketed as travel credit cards, but are actually just more glorified cashback cards. And then part 3 is going to be about what I call combo cards, and like I mentioned earlier, these are going to be cards that you can use in combination with a higher tier card to really elevate the value you get from them. As with every list style video that I've done, I'm going to be covering a lot of different cards very quickly, but if any of these do catch your eye, please be sure to check the links down in my description before you apply for one of these cards, because doing so genuinely helps me to keep creating this free content for y'all. So I truly appreciate you if you do use my links or have used them in the past. Let's go ahead and kick it off with my choice for the #1 no annual fee travel card right now, that being the Bilt Mastercard. The first thing we have to talk about with this card, as with any other card that we've talked about on the channel, is the welcome offer. Now, a lot of y'all may know this already, but the Bilt Mastercard actually is not one that comes with a traditional sign-up bonus. However, once you're approved, some people do get an email saying that you can get 5x back on all of your purchases for the first 5 days of having the card, and that excludes rent actually, and that's up to $10,000 worth of spend. So technically you could get 50,000 points if you get targeted for that offer, but again, that's not a traditional offer that we're used to. As for earning categories, this is where this card shines, because of course the first earning category is that it gives you 1x back on your rent purchases while also wiping the transaction fee, and that's up to 100,000 points per year. It also gives you 3x back on dining, 2x back on travel, and 1x back on all other purchases. But remember that to get any points on this card every single month, you have to make 5 transactions in that billing period. And while that can be slightly annoying, it is obviously pretty easy to spend only 5 times on a card every month. But do please remember that so you actually get your points. On top of some really good earning categories for a no annual fee card, especially that rent category of course, this card also comes with some of the best additional benefits out of any card we're going to talk about here today. The first of which being that this card does allow you to transfer your points out to Bilt's travel partners. Now, Bilt's travel partners are not just partners you're never going to use. They have some of the best in the game, and they actually have exclusive access to certain ones like American Airlines, for example, that you can't get on any other card. But on top of that, they have some popular brands like World of Hyatt, Air Canada's Aeroplan program, and Air France's Flying Blue, to name a few. This card also has an interesting feature on the first of every month called Rent Day. This is where you're going to be earning double points on every single purchase you make, except for rent. So that's going to bump you up to 6x back on dining, 4x back on travel, and 2x on everything else for that one day. On rent day, they also usually have a bunch of bonuses or giveaways going on too, and that may include some status trials on specific airlines, maybe a big points transfer bonus, or really like anything else. Rent day is really a feature that no other credit card has on it, at least not to this standard, and this is a big reason that they actually don't have a welcome offer on the card. But again, the value that you can get from the promotions that they have, like for one, they had one for Hyatt where you could get Globalist for like a fraction of the normal requirements, and they've also had a 100% transfer bonus to Air France KLM, and with perks like that, you can kind of see that a welcome bonus is a little less necessary. Do I wish they still had one? Yes, of course, but I think that they justify it pretty well. This card also has no foreign transaction fees, trip cancellation and interruption protection, trip delay reimbursement, auto collision damage waiver, purchase security for theft and damage, cell phone protection, Lyft and DoorDash credits, and much more. My thoughts on this card is that it is the best no annual fee travel credit card that we've ever seen on the market. They have pretty insane transfer partners, they give you rewards on on your rent, along with some other good earning categories. They have really cool promos on rent day where you might have some great transfer bonus opportunities. So to me, there's not really much to hate on with this card right now. To bring it to my perspective, I'm not even paying rent right now, but this is still a card that I'm considering sacrificing a 524 slot for, because all of the great features it offers is something that I not only want to share on the channel with y'all, but I actually want to participate in myself. The second true no annual fee travel credit card is the Capital One VentureOne. This card does come with a welcome offer of 20,000 points after you spend $500 on purchases within the first 3 months of having the account. So of course, that's very similar to like the Chase Freedom Flex and Chase Freedom Unlimited. As for the earning categories, you're going to get 5x back on hotels and car rentals booked through Capital One's travel portal, and then an unlimited 1.25 miles per dollar on every other purchase. So obviously that's not quite up to the standard that we like to see at a minimum of 1.5% back on a card like the Chase Freedom Unlimited, but it is something. As for additional benefits, of course, the biggest one in this category is going to be that you can transfer your miles out to Capital One's travel partners with this card. The card, of course, also has no foreign transaction fees, an auto rental collision damage waiver, travel accident insurance, extended warranty protection, and much more. As for my personal thoughts on this card, as I said before, the base earning rate on this card is not exactly what I like to see, but if you do want that access to travel partners with absolutely no annual fee, you can get that with this card, which is pretty nice. I would recommend though probably that you just jump to at least the Capital One Venture or Venture X, but considering this is a video about no annual fee travel cards, I just had to mention it here. Now the third card in part one is one that's not really supposed to be in here right now, but that is the Wells Fargo Autograph card. The reason I say it's not exactly meant to be here now is because right now this card is just a cashback credit card. It should technically fall into part two of travel credit cards that are actually cashback cards. But if you've kept up with the credit card news recently, you would know that Wells Fargo is actually adding transfer partners to their lineup. And as for Wells Fargo cards that will be able to do that, of course, the Wells Fargo Autograph card is poised as the #1 card to do that right now. But let me review this card more before talking any more about that. As for a welcome offer, right now at the time of me recording, there's a limited offer for 30,000 points when you spend $1,500 on the card in the first 3 months. Of course, right now that's just a $300 cashback value, but if you hold on to the points, maybe one day you'll be able to transfer those out. For earning categories, this is where this card comes in clutch. It's going to give you 3x back on dining, 3x back on travel, 3x back on gas, 3x back on transit, 3x back on popular streaming services, 3x back on phone plans, and 1x back on everything else. So obviously for a no annual fee card, its earning categories are pretty awesome. Additional benefits on this card are once again going to include no foreign transaction fees, but you'll also get cell phone protection, another auto rental collision damage waiver, travel and emergency services assistance, roadside dispatch, an emergency cash disbursement and card replacement, and much more. My honest opinion on this card is that if Wells Fargo does go ahead and add transfer partners to this card, and especially if they add transfer partners that are very similar to Bilt, because Bilt is technically a Wells Fargo co-branded card, that would make this card one of the best no annual fee credit cards in general. I mean, it already is one of the best, but if you can make it a travel card too, that's going to bring a whole new market into Wells Fargo's ecosystem. But if they do that, part of me wonders if they would maybe add an annual fee to this card or just nerf it in other ways, because it would be extremely valuable at that point. But if they keep it as strong as it is and just add some good transfer partners to it, I'm personally going to have a hard time not applying for this card. If we think about the cons of them doing that though, if they were to actually copy Bilt's travel partners and bring it to the autograph, that would make the Bilt card less of a standalone option in that category. So that's probably not best for their partnership with Bilt, but I don't know. We'll just have to see how it plays out. Now let's dive into part two, where we get into the travel credit cards with quotations around it, because these are those glorified cashback credit cards. The first on this list is actually going to be the AAA Travel Advantage card. As you can see, travel is in the name, so of course it's got to fit into this video. The welcome offer on this card right now is to earn a $100 statement credit when you spend $1,000 within the first 90 days of opening it. The earning categories on this card are pretty solid for a no annual fee card, I have to admit. That being 5% back on gas purchases and electric vehicle charging stations, only on the first $7,000 worth of spend in that category every single year. And then of course after that it's just 1% back, but you also get 3% back on travel, 3% back on restaurants, 3% on grocery stores, 3% on purchases at AAA, and 1% back on everything else. Really, the main additional benefit I could find on their website is that this card has no foreign transaction fees, which makes it a pretty good travel credit card. But of course, this is lacking the main additional benefit of being able to transfer out to any travel partners, and that is why this is not in the part one of this video. My thoughts on it though is that if you are somebody on Team Cashback and you haven't heard of this card, you should definitely look into it. This is one of the only cards that gives you a solid 5% category on both gas stations and EV charging. You just have to keep in mind that $7,000 per year cap on your spend, but if you are under that, I mean, this card is definitely one to consider. Of course, your redemption rate is capped at 1 cent per point with this card, but if you're not somebody truly on team travel, maybe this one is for you. The second travel card I want to talk about today is going to be the Bank of America Travel Rewards card. And once again, of course, this is another one of those cards with travel in the name, but you don't really have many redemption options. To start though, the welcome offer on it is for 25,000 points after spending at least $1,000 in purchases in the first 90 days of your account opening. Now, since you can only redeem up to a rate of 1 cent per point, that's going to be worth $250 flat. The earning categories on this card are extremely simple. You're just going to get 1.5x back on every dollar you spend on all purchases everywhere, and that's it. Once again, the additional benefits on this card are pretty lackluster. It does have no foreign transaction fees, so I guess that helps you if you want to use it for travel in that sense, but you cannot transfer your points out to travel partners because Bank of America doesn't have travel partners. Therefore, your redemption rate is capped at 1 cent per point. The one nice thing about it being a Bank of America card though is that you could use it as a part of their preferred rewards program, where you can get a boost of 25 to 75% on all of your points if you fall into one of the higher tiers. That means instead of 1.5x back on everything, you could technically turn this into a 1.87x back card or even a 2.62x back card, but you do have to fall into those higher tiers, which requires you to keep some money with Bank of America and stuff like that. So if that's up your alley, maybe this is a decent card for you. But then again, they do have higher tier travel cards that I would probably consider first. My personal opinion on this card is that you should probably just avoid it, mainly because it's a cashback card, and further than that, the ways that you can redeem your points are actually more limited than normal. The way that you can redeem your points on this card is for travel or dining purchases made on the card. So really it's more limiting than it's worth in my opinion, and there are really just better cards that you can get if you're in the cashback space, one of which being again like the Chase Freedom Unlimited, gives you 1.5% back, but also a lot of other earning categories and just has better perks in general. Plus a card like that gives you much better redemption options, especially when you combine it with other cards. There's only two that I mentioned in this travel credit card category. Honestly, there's probably a lot more than just these two, but in my research, these were the two that I thought people might actually apply for, assuming they are travel credit cards when they're actually not. Now let's move into part 3 of the video where we'll be talking about the combo cards. This section is going to be a lot less of a review because I've talked about these cards in detail in other videos, but I still want you to be aware of them in case these cards make more sense for you depending on your actual setup right now. So the first card I'll mention is going to be the Wells Fargo Active Cash. Now obviously this card would be best paired with the Autograph card, assuming that Wells Fargo does then allow you to transfer your points out to travel partners through that card in the future. If you can combine your rewards on the Active Cash to your Wells Fargo Autograph and then out to travel partners, I mean, that's a really solid travel duo for no annual fee. I mean, honestly, right now it's a very, very good cashback duo, but the addition of travel partners once again would be huge for Wells Fargo. And heck, it honestly could even be used as part of a trifecta with the Bilt Mastercard if they do kind of make those travel partners interchangeable a little bit. But if you wanted to just keep it in the duo, this would serve as your catch-all credit card since it gives you 2% back on everything. And then the rest of your purchases would go on the Wells Fargo Autograph card with its elevating earning categories, of course. And then if you took all of those points and transferred them out to travel partners, you'd be doing pretty well. Next up is a pair of credit cards that I just can't get away from talking about in any of my videos, but that of course is going to be the Chase Freedom Unlimited and Chase Freedom Flex. With both of these two cards, you could pair them with either the Chase Sapphire Preferred, Chase Sapphire Reserve, or even the Chase Ink Preferred if you wanted to, in order to transfer your Chase points out to their travel partners. And on top of that, you can even get a boost on your points through the travel portal depending on which card you have with them. And as y'all have definitely heard by now if you've watched any credit card YouTube, a combination of the Chase Freedom cards and Chase Sapphire cards, or Chase Ink Preferred, is going to make up the famous Chase trifecta. Just for a brief overview, the Chase Freedom Flex is a 5% rotating category card, so it'd be pretty easy at least for one quarter for you to get some value from it, considering it's also a card with no annual fee. The Chase Freedom Unlimited is a flat 1.5x earning card on all of your miscellaneous purchases, and of course both of those cards have more earning categories than just that and have some additional perks and benefits, but if you combine them with one of the higher tier Chase cards, you're likely only going to be using them for those two earning categories I mentioned. Also, you do not need to build out the entire Chase trifecta if you don't want to. Say you only got the Chase Freedom Unlimited and the Chase Sapphire Preferred, that'd be a pretty killer duo, one with no annual fee and one with just a $95 annual fee, and you could transfer to some of the best travel partners in the game. On a similar vein, but with a different lender, the Capital One Savor One is also a good combo card. You could pair this card with one of the Venture cards and most likely the Venture X if you want to build out that true Capital One duo. And what this card gives you is 3% back on a lot of daily categories that you're definitely using. Those categories being dining, entertainment, popular streaming services, and grocery stores, and then 1% 5% back on everything else. Plus right now, this card gives you 10% back on all of your Uber purchases and gives you Uber One for free up until November 14th of 2024. So obviously this is a super solid no annual fee card, covers a lot of your purchases, covers some travel purchases as well. And in combination with a venture card where you could transfer your points out to their travel partners, this card could be extremely valuable. And since we've talked about a lot of the big lenders already, might as well cap it off with a couple of Citi credit cards, the Citi Custom Cash and the Citi Double Cash. One or both of these cards could be used to pair with the Citi Premier card to then once again transfer your points out to Citi's travel partners. The Citi Custom Cash is basically just a choose your own 5% category every month because it gives you 5% back on up to $500 worth of spend in your highest eligible spend category every single month. And then the Citi Double Cash is just a flat 2% card. If you were to build out the full Citi trifecta, which again you don't have to do, you would arguably have one of the best earning trifectas on the entire market, especially when you include that Citi Premier card, because you're not only covering all of your miscellaneous purchases at 2%, you're also covering one of your highest eligible categories at 5%, and the Citi Premier has a bunch of 3% categories that you would spend in every day as well. So it's definitely one that you might want to think about. Once again though, there are a bunch of examples here that I could use for some combo credit cards in this part 3 of the video, but these are some of the main ones that I think you might have heard of or maybe should consider if you haven't heard of before. Speaking of all of these combo cards and the setups that they're a part of, I've actually made a full dedicated playlist on my channel towards credit card setups. So if one of these was more intriguing to you than another, I would recommend checking out this playlist next where I've likely talked about it already. And of course, once again, if any of these credit cards did catch your eye, it would mean a ton to me if you would at least check the links in the description and consider using those before applying, because once again, if you do, it directly supports me and helps me to continue to put out content for y'all. So thank you so much for doing so. As always, Odin and I both want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.